Welcome in to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. You know, when we first started this segment, True Crime Tuesday on Darkness Radio, we did it with a purpose. That purpose was to combine true crime and the paranormal. The only problem is you run into this problem, is that sometimes there's not enough paranormal for your true crime. There's not enough chocolate for your peanut butter for your chocolate. And you have to go into actual true crime for a while, and then you run onto some true crime, and then you get into some crime fiction, and you know how the whole deal goes. But today we return to our roots, I'm proud to say. Today we have a good friend, an old friend with us, who has come up with an absolutely wonderful book that I got the privilege to read over the weekend. The book, which is out right now, is called Paranormal Justice, Hauntings, Cryptids, and Curses in the Court of Law. Now, you wouldn't believe that there's that much out there. In fact, I think our guest was challenged to put this book together and see if there was that much out there. But you wouldn't believe how much there is out there, from the witch trials of the past to modern laws requiring the disclosure of haunted property, the justice system, and much, much more, even Ouija boards, cryptids, and all of that. We're going to sit down today with the author of this book, Brad Blair, and talk about paranormal justice. Let me first tell you a little bit about our guest, Brad Blair. He's an author, adventurer, international speaker, and researcher of all things strange. Brad Blair has harbored a passion for the unusual since childhood. He grew up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Brad has spent his days exploring regional legends and folklore, investigating claims of cryptid creatures, UFO sightings, psychic phenomena, and his favorite topic, ghosts and hauntings. Brad has investigated haunted locations throughout North America and beyond, including sites in, and I'm jealous about this, England, Cuba, and Romania. He has contributed to many publications and documentaries on the paranormal and continues to pursue a lifelong study of the bizarre. Along with lifelong friends Tim Ellis and Steve LaPlante, Brad authored 2019's Supernatural Haunts, chronicling the case files of their research teams. This was followed up in 2021 by another collaboration with Tim called Great Lakes Monsters and Mysteries. They were both on the show to talk about that book, and both titles are available through Visionary Living Publishing. He's a founding member of the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society, co-host of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, a great show I encourage you to check out. We'll have a link in the description of this program. And he's co-founder of the Michigan Paranormal Convention, which I'll be appearing at. Brad lives in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, where he's joining us from now with his wife, Jennifer, and son, Caden. And he also owns and operates several tourism-related businesses. Let's welcome in to True Crime Tuesday, Brad Blair. Welcome back, Brad.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Tim.
Thanks for being back with us. I appreciate it. This book, my friend, wonderful book. I got to tell you, I was entertained throughout the entire thing. It moves very quickly, and there's so many interesting tidbits. You know, the one thing I love really great bits of information about some of the quirky stuff that our world has come up with as far as laws that we've created around things that may or may not exist. First of all, tell me, what was it that made you put this book together, and who laid down the gauntlet for you?
It's been developing. It's really been stewing for years. Back in 1991, I can remember sitting in my parents' living room, and this news blurb came on the 6 o'clock evening news about a house in New York that was deemed legally haunted by the Supreme Court of the state of New York. And it was a case that became famously known as Stambofsky versus Ackley. And I thought, man, that's bizarre. And obviously, I grew up into everything strange. And hearing that a house could be deemed legally haunted by the courts, I'm like, that's wild. Mm-hmm. So I started looking a little bit more into, where would the courts fall on? Where would lawmakers fall on different areas of the supernatural? And of course, back then, the internet was more or less in its infancy, so it required going to the library and thumbing through books, and it wasn't easy to find. There were some cases out there, things like the Greenbrier ghosts that were well published in history, and there were a handful, but I always kind of had this interest in the back of my head. So here and there, I'd be sitting down and let me just Google laws on Bigfoot or Loch Ness monster litigation, and see what I could find. So I've always been really looking into this and just collecting stories. And during COVID, when all of us were locked in and had very little going on, I thought, I'm going to try and put this into a book form. But I don't know if there's going to be enough. I thought maybe worst case scenario, I could get a fairly decent, long article that I could pitch to somebody.
Sure.
And try and get published at some point. But I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to take this all the way to get enough for a full book. And wow, was I surprised. The more I dug, the more rabbit holes I went down, the more was there. And I thought, holy, by the time I got done and I'm putting all of these chapters together, man, I've got too much info. And some of this stuff gets a little repetitive, and some of the cases were very similar. So I looked and tried to find the more interesting of the 2 or 3 cases when that happened, just to avoid redundancy in the book. So I ended up editing probably enough that I could throw another book together at some point. But it was just interesting to dig into these different areas. And every now and then you'd hear something about, well, this person got arrested for doing this with a Ouija board, or doing this ghost hunt, blah blah blah. But yeah, just to see how far some of this stuff went, and it was one of those cases where it was easy to find headlines. They love to sensationalize this stuff in the media. So when a case came up, they would splash it out there, but there was never any follow up on most of these cases, unless it was something that was really extreme. You could find very little follow-up on it, and it was just, you would hit a brick wall. So I ended up digging into a lot of court files, getting online, in some cases having to pay for access to get into different court finding systems, and just to dig and get to the bottom of some of these cases. But it was, fortunately, the media would pick up on a lot of this stuff, and you'd have, so-and-so buys American Horror Story house and is suing the former realtor. And okay, perfect. Well, you get into that and then there's nothing. Yeah. And so that was a case that I ended up having to go through Los Angeles court records for to find out how that ever ended. And yeah, there were quite a few like that, but I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised and a little shocked to find out how many cases involving the supernatural, involving cryptids, were actually out there and had been faced by not just courts and the legal system, but lawmakers, and everything from really county right up to the Supreme Court in some cases. So there was more info than I ever would have thought I would have came up with.
There was only one case in the book that I know of that actually updated, and that was the Slender Man case. Since publication, and yeah. that was only because, again, and this will be ongoing for the rest of this young lady's life, that she was brought up once again for parole and once again denied. But this is going to happen every few years. That
right after I put everything in for publication, I saw that.
Yeah. But you can't control that, obviously.
No. Like you said, that's going to be ongoing. One of the 2 young ladies was released, and I think that was the what gave this other one some hope of getting out. But the one that actually conducted the assault is still under lock and key. Yeah, and I would guess will be still for quite some time.
Let's address that one first. Now, in that case, we talk about the devil made me do it type scenarios, and there's literally the devil made me do it scenario. But when you talk about a case like Slender Man, where someone says, I've been coerced, I've been hearing voices, or it's that we're doing this in the name of type entity, or we're doing it in honor of an entity type thing, Brad. That never stands up in court, does it? That's never a thing that washes. Why doesn't it? Why is it that our court system doesn't believe if we swear on a Bible in court and we swear to a deity that we're going to tell the truth, why is it we can't buy the other side, the evil side of things, and say that we can be coerced by an evil entity to commit a crime?
And in some countries, it actually has held up, but not in the U.S., not in North America to this point, from what I've found. And the Slender Man's an interesting case because And with a handful of these cases, when you're dealing with a purported supernatural entity, you're dealing with demonic possession, yeah, it's often just assumed that there's a mental health issue going on. And in some cases there are. There are cases I lay out in the book that, in one example, a guy was certain he was a Bigfoot and attacked a hunter in the woods. There are these cases where, yes, unfortunately, there's a mental health component too. Like you said, with the Slender Man case, and for people that aren't familiar with it, it was two young ladies in Wisconsin that lured a friend of theirs, supposed friend, out into the woods and repeatedly stabbed her. And it was quite amazing with the wound she had that this young lady survived.
Yeah.
But she was able to crawl to a house and get help. And the two young ladies that attacked her, that assaulted her, ended up in a youth detention facility. He said one was released probably about 3 years ago now.
Yep.
The other one just came back up and was denied any type of release. So, yeah, it's a lot of these cases, and you'll see double standards in some of them, which I found interesting because they didn't want to acknowledge a supernatural presence, but then would try and turn around and use it against, in some cases, the defendants. One of the more famous, of course, the Devil Made Me Do It trial of Arnie Anderson that was covered in the last Conjuring film that came out. His attorney actually was doing research into cases in England where people had claimed demonic possession and ended up getting sentences reduced or getting off because of it. Now, whether or not that was another issue of mental health, in some cases it seemed like it may have been, but in this case, the judge said, absolutely not. I'm not turning this into some kind of a circus court here. I don't want the media all over this saying that this guy is possessed by a demon, even though that was the whole gist of his defense. And that shot that. So they ended up having to switch the plea, changing the whole case over. And I think part of that, too, was probably the fact that the media had already gotten wind of this, and they were already crowding the courthouse before this even really got rolling. But it was, again, like you said, it's one of those things that, okay, this is what he's resting his defense on. This is what he's claiming. Why wouldn't the court give at least a half serious look at it? But the judge completely denied it in that case.
I would think you could start with mental acuity and work your way backwards. So if you start with a mental acuity test and you go through all the psychological tests and you test out perfectly that you have perfect mental acuity, and then go backwards and then go to possession.
Yeah.
And then your lawyer states, listen, we swear on a Bible that we're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're saying there's a God, there has to be a devil, right? Mm-hmm. Then there must be possession. In that case, you would have to be able to prove in a court of law in the United States that there is such a thing as possession. I would think that would hold up in a court of law, wouldn't it? I mean, I would ask you for your opinion in this case.
It's dependent on the judge you're in front of. It's dependent on the attorneys in many cases, which way they want to go with it. And if you're in front of a jury, it's dependent on what those men and women think. But you can take a case like this, one of the more famous too, the Anneliese Michel case in Germany, that The Exorcism of Emily Rose, the movie was based off of. Here you had two priests standing in front of a jury, in front of a courtroom, saying, yes, we believe wholeheartedly this young lady was under demonic influence. We have audio recordings. We have video of this whole, the exorcisms that they went through. And she finally passed away from, she would not eat, would not drink. Her body just gave out. She ended up dying of malnutrition. The priests in this case swore, and they never backed down from their case. And they were co-defendants along with her parents, who fully believed as well. They were a very religious family, and they believed that she was under some form of demonic possession. But when it came down to the courts, and they got off fairly easy on it, the priests were sentenced to a year, I believe, which they never did have to serve, and then some probation off of that. The parents, it was deemed, had suffered enough through this case, so they were just released. But yeah, no, they said to this day, Annalise Michelle's grave is still visited by pilgrims that believe she was under demonic possession and overcame it at the time of her death. So wow. the courts in that case, you've got two men of the cloth up there and being tried for manslaughter, and they never backed down in their belief. Following that case, the head of the church in Germany made it stipulated that they must have a medical professional anytime there is an exorcism going on. Would that have saved her? We don't know. Unfortunately, it did not end well.
I would think it wouldn't hurt. That's for sure. If anything, you can at least keep tabs on the person that's having the exorcism done. Yeah, I don't know. As an investigator, Brad, there's only so much you can do. Yeah,
and it was tragic in that case. So that's another one of those ones that Hollywood got a hold of and ran wild with. But you can pull up the audio, at least, of that on YouTube, and it's terrifying.
It is, yeah.
If you listen to the audio of the exorcism of Annalise Michelle, and you could swear you're hearing multiple voices, different sounds coming from this young lady's vocal cords. It's truly terrifying. It was administered in court. They brought all of this in, and the priest swore that they absolutely felt 100% that she was under the influence of a demonic entity.
The stress alone in her voice sounds like the kind of stress you would put on a body that would cause a heart attack. Even if you were mentally unfit or if you were truly possessed, either way, you're sounding like you're putting yourself through enough stress to cause a heart attack.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate, but they say different courts around the world handle it different ways. The U.S., I think, and Canada, I guess you could lump all of North America together, is so skeptical on anything along that lines. Even as the paranormal has opened up in popularity somewhat, mainly with the surge in reality television, and there's still that. And I'm not saying it's healthy to have a good dose of skepticism with you, but some people just automatically look the other way, want to throw these things out. And, sometimes when you end up in court and these factors start playing into it, there's no way you can do without giving them a full, getting the full jury treatment on them, getting the judge to look and say, yeah, this person is claiming that they've been in contact with the spirit of a murder victim, that everything's adding up. We don't know how they would know this, things along that line that make them stop and open their eyes a little bit more, I think.
Let's talk a little bit about psychics before we go to break here, because psychics in the psychic realm and being in touch with murder victims and using that evidence in court, we see psychics working with the police department quite a bit now in finding lost victims. It's a little bit of a sketchy gray area, isn't it, in our police departments and in the FBI these days?
It's sketchy, but it's acknowledged. And there is a federal handbook for law enforcement on how to deal with working with psychics. And it is one of those things that there has been enough put out. You've seen enough evidence of people that come out with, and I'm not saying there aren't some charlatans out there. We all know there are. Yeah. But this is cases that I was able to pop up for the book. There was one in specific. A young man was murdered in Louisiana. His body was thrown in the swamp. There was a psychic from California that called in and said she was in contact with him. And she had details on where his missing truck was. She had details on where his body had been dumped, and most importantly, who killed him. And the two that were picked up and arrested for the crime, they both ended up being found guilty of murder in the case. They never would have had a case. They had nothing to go on until this woman called in and offered her services. But it was the first time that there'd ever been a psychic allowed to testify in court as evidence. So, yeah, it happens. It is out there.
You know, on a side note, on a completely different side note, you bring up in the book, which I find completely interesting, Miss Cleo of yes, and the whole difference between her and the Psychic Friends Network, and even the fact that up until her death, she was
making money off of the Miss Cleo song.
Yes, yeah. And you know, as much as she was maligned, she was loved, and even put in the. Although she wasn't, her voice was put into Grand Theft Auto.
Yes. Yeah. She was doing commercials for the cereal at one point. Yeah. In fact, the owners of the Psychic Friends Network that she worked for stepped in and sued her, or tried to sue her, because they were using this Miss Cleo persona that they'd invented. And she was actually, I believe, from L.A. She was not this authentic Jamaican woman who was out with the power of the tarot. And that was an interesting case to read up on too, just how they built so many people out of so much money that I believe it was the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, stepped in and had to shut them down and made them erase something like $500 million in debt that they had accrued from customers that were calling in, and all of these, pay over the phone services. So it was pretty wild how deep people got into that. But it was, you're my age, Tim. You remember back then when those commercials would pop on, you knew her voice right away, and you knew where that sales pitch was going. So she was almost a cultural icon at the time. She was.
Her Jamaican lilt. I mean, automatically your eye went to the TV. You heard the "call me now," and you were like, you almost wanted to pick up the phone and call her. I mean, because you thought maybe she had something. Maybe she had some sort of special message for you. Yeah,
a special message, but she was probably one of the best commercial spokespeople of all time.
Yes.
She's obviously, for our generation, she'll always be recognizable. Kind of nowadays, you've got Flo with Progressive and the Gecko guy, the lizard. And she was one of those just icons in marketing. And it was at a time that, people were picking up the phone and calling in. Dionne Warwick had the other Psychic Friends group that she was. I think they're still out there. But, you look into the background on some of these services, and we covered that a little bit in the psychic chapter. But, it's one of those things that you have to be very skeptical when dealing with psychics. And I know a handful that I 100% believe have some type of ability. And then I've met others that I can pick apart a cold reading pretty well at this point in life. I've dealt with enough that, it's just, where do you draw the line? And unfortunately, some of the less reputable, I think, tear down any chance of credibility for those that actually are able to help, do actually have some sort of a gift that they can put out there, because people just automatically blow them off when you think about people like Miss Cleo, and that whole circus that happened around her and around the Psychic Friends Network. So, it's a very interesting two-sided coin there with psychics.
Well, nowadays you've got California psychics, and that's the huge one now. Do you think with the forebear of Psychic Friends Network, do you think they've put a bigger onus on California psychics? Do you think California psychics has to be that much more accurate because of what happened with Psychic Friends Network and the fact that they did have litigation come down on them?
You would hope so. I think at the end of the day, there are always going to be people out there that are curious enough that they're willing to pick up the phone and pay $2.99 a minute or whatever it amounts to nowadays. I believe it's California Psychics that has their own app, so you don't even have to call in anymore. You can push a button on your phone and find out what the future holds for you. But I would think that put more of those type of businesses kind of under a fine lens as far as the law goes and as far as customers go. They were the business in that whole field for so long, though, and they racked up so much in the way of debt that, once they started picking apart their marketing practices, and it all, that house of cards kind of fell in on them in a real hurry. So, it's an interesting field, isn't it?
It is very interesting indeed. I tell you what, we'll take our break right here. When we come back, we'll talk about who exactly owned the Ouija board back in the day. We'll talk a little bit about this. We'll go back to trials a little bit, talk about the Salem witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition. And we'll talk about hunting, cryptids in particular. And we'll talk about why we should leave Bigfoot and Nessie alone and we shouldn't necessarily go after them. We're talking with Brad Blair. The book is out there right now, and it's a fantastic book, folks. The book is called Paranormal Justice, Hauntings, Cryptids, and Curses in the Court of Law. We have a link to it in the description of this program. We encourage you to go get it during the break. When we come back, we're talking Ouija boards, Salem, and cryptids. When we come back with Brad Blair right after this on the best in true crime podcasting, this is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is author Brad Blair. The book is Paranormal Justice, Hauntings, Cryptids, and Curses in the Court of Law. When we left you, we were talking about psychic friends, and now we're jumping into a different arena. We're going to talk a little bit about how we get a hold of somebody on the other side without necessarily having to be psychic ourselves. Let's talk a little bit about Ouija boards, or Ouija boards, however you want to pronounce it. We both have a good friend, Bob Murch, who's head of the Talking Board Society. Really, really awesome guy who will tell you quite a bit about these talking boards and how they first started. You have an excellent story in the book, Brad. I'm wondering if you'll regale us with the tale of how two brothers got into it over the Ouija board.
Oh, it was, and I have to thank Bob Murch because he was a big part of this chapter. It was one of those areas with the Ouija. I knew there were some stories, but I didn't quite really think I could put together a full chapter. And I ended up on the phone interviewing Bob Murch for probably close to 2 hours, and just some fascinating info that he had to pass on, and a few other members of the Talking Board Historical Society. I kind of piqued their minds and got a few quotes here and there from some different ones. But yeah, I mean, going right back, you look at the age of spiritualism when the Ouija board started to really get popular. I mean, you had tables that kind of had the same purpose in the past, going back hundreds of years, but to take it and actually say, yeah, we're going to patent this. I mean, it was unheard of. Mm-hmm. It was unheard of. So you had the bonds, you had this whole company that was kind of founded around the Ouija board. It was a top novelty item. And yeah, the brothers had a falling out over it. They had uprisings within the company, the Kennard Novelty Company, if you want to go way back. It's fascinating to read how, one broke off and decided they were going to start a knockoff. Well, and that ended up in court, and the judge had to put the hammer down. And it's almost old-timey gangster-like stuff when you start reading into these stories of how the Ouija board developed and how the company was bought out and transferred, and the rights to it, and just the amazing amounts of money that came in.
Yeah.
You look at the history of the Ouija, you're thinking back in late early 1900s when spiritualism was just the rage. You didn't have radios in all the homes. You didn't have televisions. People would have dinner parties, and then they would have a seance on a Ouija board in their parlor. And this was very popular back then. So it was actually a very, very big money, and it still is today. You still got Ouijas made and talking boards made by so many companies in so many forms. But yeah, I mean, you look back in the day when this all started up, they were in and out of court nonstop, whether it be cease and desists, whether it be copyright infringement. It's some of my favorite cases in the entire book revolve around the Ouija board. One that I pulled up that I had heard somewhat of in the past, but I hadn't dug into, was the Mark Twain novel, Jap Heron.
Yes, yeah.
Interestingly enough, was published 7 years after Twain's death. And as it happened, there was a psychic in Kansas City, it was Emily Hutchings, that she worked with the Society for Psychical Research. And she said Twain was coming through to her. and they were having regular Ouija sessions, and he was dictating a new novel through the Ouija board to her. Well, the Society for Psychical Research was contacting Twain's daughter and saying, well, this is coming through, and your dad wanted us to confirm with you on this. And then she said, no, none of this is real. She said, none of this makes any sense to me. And it got to the point where she felt she was being harassed. So she just asked them, please don't contact me again. Do not use my father's name in association with anything you put out there. She said, I have seen nothing from you that makes me think in the least way my father is in communication with you. Well, they translated the entire book and put it out there. And Clara Clemens, Twain's daughter, filed the lawsuit right away saying, you need to take my father's name off of this. You have no right to this. This isn't him. Not only that, but Harper and Brothers, Twain's publisher in life, stepped in, said, well, we own the rights to all of Twain's work, which begot the question of, do they still own the rights after his death to anything he would put out? Which was a totally novel legal question for the day, would be today as well.
Sure.
On top of that, they own the pen name Mark Twain. So I said, okay, if you go ahead and decide to put this out, any money you make is owed to us. We own the Mark Twain name. We own Mark Twain's all of his literary works. Therefore, anything that you put out and sell, those funds come to us. We're going to pass them along to the Mark Twain estate, so his family would get it. And they finally ended up grudgingly dropping it. The book is out there. You can still find copies, but it had to be put under Emily Hutchings, not Mark Twain. And the whole Mark Twain listing is on. But it was a fascinating case just to read on how this was developing. And back then, Mark Twain was still a huge name, is still now.
Sure.
The media picked up on this right away. So there are plentiful newspaper articles that could be found on Clara Clemens versus Hutchings and her publisher on this.
If you're Emily Hutchings, first of all, I got to think, if you're sitting down and you're saying, okay, I channeled Mark Twain, he told me this, I put it in a book. I got to think you think a couple steps ahead before you start to put this out. I mean, don't you think the publisher is going to come after you? Don't you think the family's going to come after you and say, we don't think it's him, but hey, if it is, we'll gladly take the money from you. Don't you think that they're going to come after you and take the money from you?
This was a time, though, too, when this was not the first book that was released that was supposedly written with the aid of the spirit realm. There were other books out that were some that sold very well, that were supposedly dictated through a Ouija board or through automatic writing. Some were highly acclaimed. Nobody, though, that I could find put out a name like Mark Twain. You don't take one of the most celebrated writers in the history of the United States and claim it was coming from them. In fact, any other book that I found that was written from the spirit world, there were no names that could be traced to them. So again, this is, we're talking back turn of the century. You didn't get online and Google. Maybe these people did exist and maybe the message did come through. But there was nobody to argue these other cases, with Hutchings coming out and saying, yeah, it's Mark Twain, and he's coming through on my kitchen table through my Ouija board, and we've dictated the entire novel through this. And from Twain's daughter's perspective, as well as Harper and Brothers as publishers, is, well, this is nowhere near the level that Mark Twain wrote at, so they didn't want his name associated with it in the first place, even if they would have thought, yeah, maybe this will give us a little pop and it'll sell some of Twain's older books, and we'll see a little resurgence here 7 years after he passed. But they said it really wasn't the quality of work that they would expect out of Mark Twain either. So they just wanted this done and buried, and that's what ended up happening eventually. Right when they were about to start the court proceedings, they ended up settling on it.
Now, you want to draw a modern day type parallel here. I'm going to drop one on you that you probably have heard, but you haven't heard. Drake drops a song with Tupac on it, but it's AI Tupac. Have you heard of this story? Did you hear this story last week?
I did not look into it heavily, but yes.
Okay. So essentially for our listeners, what happened was Drake dropped a song and it was in the middle of a beef with, I believe it was, I'm trying to, the name's on the tip of my tongue here. But anyways, he's in the middle of a rap beef. He drops a battle rap, and in there, he drops AI Tupac in there. And first of all, they're saying, well, AI, the person that he's battling, first of all, would never have sided against him. So they're saying that would have been wrong. Second, they say the work is below, much like you said with Mark Twain, the rap is shoddy, as they put it, or below Tupac's standard. Although they said it was a halfway decent rap, but they said it was below Tupac's standard, so it wouldn't really have been something Tupac would have done. And now Mopreme, his brother, is saying, well, shouldn't there be some profits coming the family's way?
Yeah.
Interesting
the
stuff.
whole AI question's getting scary.
It is.
The more and more this is developing out there, and writing this book actually was a great example. I self-edited this using Grammarly, and some of the suggestions that would pop up would be completely different paragraphs. Well, we think this would fit in better. That's not what I'm trying to say here.
Right.
So 95% of the time when I got the suggestions, I just bumped those off and kept going with what I was using it to catch grammar errors and spelling errors, and which are plentiful. Anybody writing can tell you, you're not going to get through without missing a few. But yeah, just the AI, and there's the option for full AI generation. Do you want us to write your next paragraph? Well, no. It's scary the way I think this could go, and I don't know. I don't know where it's going to end up. I've seen examples of full books, papers, articles that are all written AI, and there are some giveaways at this point. I was talking to a gentleman a couple of weeks ago at a writer's retreat I was at, who was judging writing competitions, and they picked out a couple that were AI generated, disqualified the people. But it's as this gets smoothed over, you're not going to know the difference.
No, it's very clean. I mean, some of the fakes that are out there, as far as video goes, are very smooth. They're very smooth. Yeah. And we've been talking a lot on Supernatural News about how some of the video fakes are way too good. I mean, not just the video fakes, but now there's just weird, bizarre stuff out there, Brad, like people dialing up AI girlfriends and boyfriends and things like that. And it's getting weird. It's just getting too weird for me.
Terminator's next.
It is. It really is. Well, the story last week was that the Air Force now has run autonomous dogfights. So it's already happened. They did it last year. So, I mean, it's already here. So it's just when you get mixing it into the arts like this, into writings, into paintings, different forms of, it's at what point are humans unnecessary? Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. And it's Kendrick Lamar that Drake was battling. So you can save your emails for me. I don't need them. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the Salem witch trials and the Spanish Inquisition. When we talk about justice, we'll get back on the topic of justice here a little bit. We talked a little bit about creative things and creative copyright things. Let's talk a little bit about getting back to punishment, crime and punishment. The only time where governments went after and punished people for being on the wrong side of the spiritual, so to speak, the Spanish Inquisition and the Salem witch trials, and a popular form of torture, which is so my mom always used to threaten me with hanging me up by my thumbs. I never knew what that meant, but tell us a little bit about that form of torture.
Oh yeah, no, and it's the witch trials through Europe were so much more intense. We always hear about Salem here. Mm-hmm. But what they went through and the forms of torture they did, like you said, hanging somebody by the thumbs to extract, their confession, and just the grueling, horrible things that you'd have to be sadistic just to think up some of these tortures that they would bring these people in, normally women. And it was back in a time, though, too, where the church had as much or more authority than the courts did. Most of the courts were through whoever the royalty was at the time. And it was so sectional. Like you talk about a Supreme Court now overseeing everything in the U.S. Back then, every little kingdom fiefdom you had their own laws, had their own justice, and then the church could roll in and kind of oversee and overtake them. And that was a lot with the witch trials. It was interesting to see between one country to another in Europe. Germany was a good example. That was a lot of small independent areas that all had their own laws, all had different forms of punishment, and trying to get these women to confess to crimes they more than likely did not do. Mm-hmm. The Spanish Inquisition, that was the double-edged sword in there. And everything I think about now is Monty Python.
Yes, I do too.
That's the Spanish Inquisition. So looking at some of the ways that they would go around it. Yeah, these were some bad dudes, but they also kind of held the line. In a lot of cases, they would go into an area where you had hundreds of people being tried and imprisoned and tortured. Say, wait a minute, this is not, there's nothing here for evidence. There's no real reason that you're going after these groups of people. And they actually would step in and put an end to some of the trials that I found out through research. They could go both ways. There were some that overdid it with their powers and were arrested, and some of them were put to death by other members of the Spanish Inquisition for getting a little too radical, if you know what I mean by what they were doing with their torture, with these accusations that were out there. So it was such a bizarre time in history. And if we look at most witchcraft laws that were out there, a lot of them stem from England. The British royalty had some of the most concise writings on laws pertaining to the occult and witchcraft. And a lot of these spread throughout Europe and really through the world, because you look at how many colonies the British had throughout the entire globe. And you look at the Salem witch trials as one example. That was all based off English law. The British they were very tight on this. Mm-hmm. And you had very superstitious monarchies that adjusted as they went along. Witch trials for different forms of anything to do with the occult go back to the British Isles and the laws they had set up. They had the last person, everybody talks about the witch trials, and you think back to the 1700s. The last person arrested under the English Witchcraft Acts, the Act of 1735, I believe it was in 1944.
Wow.
It was this supposed psychic medium named Helen Duncan. And Helen was giving readings to the survivors of some victims of World War II. They'd lost children in the war effort, and the Department of Defense in England got wind of this, and they were afraid that she was going to be giving away government secrets, that she'd be a threat to the war effort. So she was in the middle of giving a seance one night, and they broke in and arrested her. And this was 1944. We're not talking about going back 300-400 years. This was just in the last century. And she was the last person that was ever arrested under that. I believe she served a little bit under a year and was let out. But Winston Churchill kind of poo-pooed the whole thing. It made it up to him. It was this well publicized. But there were people in his War Department, in his Defense Department, that said, well, if she's legit and she's getting information from deceased soldiers, she could know all of our plans. She could know what's going on with, And as bizarre as that sounds, that was not that long ago.
But I mean, that's taking it a little bit to an extreme, because you would think, as in life, so is in death. If a soldier is going to hold on to information in life, wouldn't they hold on to it on the other side?
Well, they might have a grudge.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
You never
Yeah,
know.
they could have a grudge. Sure.
But no, they followed through on this, and that was the last person arrested. So, a little bit before our lifetime, but really not, in the scheme of things, not that long ago.
Yeah, very true.
You're thinking we're in a time where, people have televisions. Everything. We're at the end of the Industrial Revolution's already happened. You've got a little more scientific mindset, you would think. Meanwhile, in England, which is as modern country as you were going to get at the time, they're still arresting people for witchcraft. So
that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Wow. Wow.
That was another one of those surprising cases when I saw that. This can't quite be right.
Yeah.
I got digging in, and there it was.
Speaking of crazy, Brad, there's a couple of things in this book that absolutely blow my mind. And every time I've seen these articles in the news, I roll my eyes a little bit and go, you got to be kidding me. But they're true. They're absolutely true. A lot of these have to do with people either applying for or wondering if there's a license to hunt Bigfoot or go after Nessie. Yeah. Let's tackle Bigfoot first, because some of these have to do with conservation. Other of these say, well, if we don't hunt Bigfoot or don't have a body, we can't prove that it exists.
Yeah.
Let's start with down south.
It's pretty wild. You see a lot more of this legislation for Bigfoot protection in the Pacific Northwest, where you have all the sightings. Washington, Oregon, there are counties that they have it on the books. There is a fine and jail time if you harm a Bigfoot. Okay, I guess you have to find them first. On the opposite side, you've got Texas, where if it exists and somebody finds it and it's not listed as an endangered species, sure, go ahead and shoot it. So you've got the moral dilemma with that. Yeah. And it's interesting because you've got laws around the world pertaining to Bigfoot. You can go up into Canada and find very similar. You go over to Yeti territory, and you have sightings of some type of a humanoid creature like this almost worldwide. So, with the ethical dilemma on that, is it okay to shoot it to prove that it exists, or are we killing off an endangered species? And this was another interesting interview I did that kind of opened my eyes. I didn't really think of. I reached out to Rich Meyer, who's the head of the Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Research Organization. And I, what are your thoughts on legal protection? He said, well, if you've got a creature like this, he said, look at how many apes have protected areas. And he said, you would have to set aside habitat. So say here in the UP of Michigan, where logging's big and you have a lot of industries based off of it. So now all of a sudden you have to shut down certain areas to make sure there's enough habitat for this large mammal that's an endangered species. So now you're shutting off the logging industry. All of the companies they supply are affected. All of the companies that supply them get affected. So there are major financial considerations that would go into some type of legislation like this. It's not strictly we're going to close off this game area so Bigfoot can live there. There were a lot of pieces to this. So it was really an interesting interview to do with Rich and get his opinion on it from somebody that's been out in the woods for years and years searching for these creatures. Absolutely.
And then you look at another creature and the possibility of tourism. And we talk about Loch Ness and the Loch Ness Monster. And you talk about a creature that brings in millions a year in Scotland. And then you talk about other creatures that are similar. One of the ones I think of locally here in Minnesota is Peppy. You have one in Lake Champlain and in Champ. That you bring up in the book. And then, of course, we have Nessie and Loch Ness. But then you think, I know of some pretty big fishermen out there that would think, well, it'd be kind of nice to not necessarily hook it, but catch and release and see if you could actually, look this thing in the eye.
Yeah, well, for Champ in the Eastern UP, both New York and Vermont have laws against catching or harming. Loch Ness Monster, that a number of years back, there was a big commercial fish farming outfit that wanted to set up in Loch Ness. And there was a group of environmentalists that went after them because they were afraid they were going to disturb Nessie's habitat. And this went through the courts, and the fish farming outfit was given their permits. They were allowed in. So maybe Nessie ended up with a better diet from that. Now you've got more fish being pumped out there commercially. But yeah, you look at, there are serious groups that get behind this, and that was another one that went to court. But you look at, 40 or 50 some $1 million annually they assume that Nessie brings into the Loch Ness area. Wow. Between all of the tourism that's generated through the sightings. And again, you think of the impact on business if somebody were to catch and kill. Yeah. If there was only one, and which would be a big assumption with the Loch Ness Monster, obviously with Bigfoot, with the sightings throughout the globe, we're assuming it's a separate species. But yeah, your tourism dollars, all of these different financial decisions that, this would have an impact on all of these different industries. So yeah, and that, of course, when there's big money involved, the courts are going to be involved. So that's just kind of hand in glove anymore. So it was just some really, really interesting things that I never thought of and didn't expect to run on that popped up in researching this book. So yeah, there's definitely a lot stranger out there than fiction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of tourism, we've got Michigan Paracon coming up in August. Ooh. Yes, indeed. And it's a big one indeed. I think it's just me. This is the biggest paranormal convention, if not on this side of the world, in my opinion.
It's gotten away. It's gotten out of control.
And it's definitely the most enjoyable. I think everybody who walks through those doors has a very good time. I will have a link in the description of this program, of course, for people to go get their tickets. Tell people what they can expect when they come through those doors there at the casino.
Coming up August 22nd through the 24th this year at Kuwaitan Casino in the Sioux. It's 3 days. It started off a day and a half, and here we are. Our 14th annual, should have been 15th, but that pesky thing called COVID got in the way of everything. Yeah. So this is the 14th, and it is 3 days of paranormal presentations from podcast hosts, reality TV stars, authors, you name it, psychics. We have psychic gallery readings going on. We have workshops on all different kinds of strange and bizarre things. Nighttime entertainment. It's really gotten to be a 3-day party. And talking to people, some of our return guests that come year after year after year, call it their family reunion. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of humbling. And it's great to see that people are so attached to the event and have gotten to be such good friends. And we've had people get engaged at the show. We actually had one couple get married on stage at Paracon. So yeah, it's really, it's a labor of love. There's a lot that goes into putting it on, but you can check out the lineup at miparacon.com as well as get tickets there. Still kind of finalizing some things and getting it all worked out, but we should have hopefully the full schedule up by the start of June. So keep checking back, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, if you haven't gotten tickets yet, by all means, hop on there. Still some weekend passes available. And I believe I think our actual investigation of the museum ship is sold out at this point. But I think there are still tickets left for all of the other side events that are going on.
Okay. So, Perfect.
Everything, all of the presentations, meet and greets, vendor rooms are all included in a general pass. The only thing you have to pay extra on is some of these little more intimate breakout sessions that go on throughout the weekend.
Awesome. And I encourage everyone, go out to if you're a fan of the paranormal, you've got to go to this convention at least once. This is like a destination event if you love the paranormal.
At this point, we've had people in, and it's shocking and a bit humbling, but we've had people fly in from Australia, France, Germany. I mean, it's gotten kind of a worldwide flair, and we don't know how. And when Tim Ellis and I put this together, it was, well, maybe if we have a good turnout the first year, we can get greenlit for a second year. And here we are coming up on the 14th event, and it's like, man, maybe if we slow things down this year, we can get out of it after another year or two. But
I don't know.
It's one of those things that's taken a life of its own. And so we so appreciate everybody that comes out and supports the event year after year. And we really, really couldn't do it without the support that we've had from the local community, the attendees, Kuwait Casino, and everybody involved with it. It's really a major effort to undertake, and just the fact that it's still going this far out, we never expected it to. We really never expected it to go this long.
I think you built a monster, my friend. It's a good one, though. It's definitely a good one, that's for sure. The book is Paranormal Justice, Hauntings, Cryptids, and Curses in the Court of Law. We have a link in the description of this program. It's an excellent book, folks. Go out and get it right now. Brad, I want to thank you so much for being on the program, my friend.
Thank you, Tim, and look forward to throwing back a couple cold ones with you come August.
Absolutely. I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Folks, we can't lighten it up any more than we have, but let's bring in Mally Fox. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time again, the time that you and I have all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. That means we get to make fun of other people for being stupid. That seems kind of bad. Let's bring in the co-hostess with the mostest, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say hi to Mally Fox. Hi, Mally.
Hello.
Oh, boy, do we have some stories today.
Awesome.
Yeah. You know what? I saw this story. You're going to laugh when I tell you this. Do you still watch Inside Edition?
No, is it still on?
It's still on.
Oh, no, I don't.
Deborah Norville. That's who I get. I got this story from Deborah Norville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like personally or just off the presses?
No, she doesn't call me anymore. We kind of broke up. No, not personally.
I don't know. You're well connected.
No. I was watching. I had it on in the background as I was, gathering stories for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals.
Uh-huh.
And I saw this story and I said, "There's no way that this happened," but it did. A New York DA got pulled over for a speeding ticket, and she pulled the "Do you know who I am?"
Oh, man.
And not only that, she acted like a complete a-hole to the cop.
I hope they ask her to step down.
I hope so, too.
She's probably getting roasted on social media.
Well, she's getting roasted everywhere, including with her superiors. New York DA Sandra Dorley blames frightening medical concerns. She blamed it on her husband.
What? Was he in the car?
No. She was just on her way home. But then she said she was concerned for her husband and his medical condition. That's why she was being such an asshole. And some work stress. Yeah, and things are rough at work, Mel.
Yeah, no one has work stress.
Yeah, that's why she cursed out a cop over getting a speeding ticket. And the cop was very nice. He was very understanding. She kept battling him all the way into her garage and eventually into her house. Let me explain this story. The upstate New York district attorney is under fire for berating an a-hole cop. That's a quote from Ms. Dorley, who pulled her over for speeding and apologized on Monday and blamed her caught-on-camera outburst on work stress. I think we all have a little bit of work stress, don't we? Yeah. Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley has been taking heat ever since police body cam footage emerged last week of her bratty encounter with the Webster, New York officer after she was busted speeding near her home. "I just come from work," Dorley said in a videotaped apology released Monday morning. I want to show you her I'm sincere face, Melly. This is her.
No.
Yeah.
She's not a good actor.
No, not at all. That was her I'm sincere face. You should have seen her bitchy face. It was pretty similar. "I was dealing with 3 homicides that occurred on the weekend," she said. "I watched a video where an innocent cab driver was executed, and I was still reeling from a frightening medical concern that my husband received that afternoon." Okay, whatever. Sure. Mm-hmm. "But we all have had bad days and stress, and it was wrong for me to take it out on an officer who was just doing his job." Well, you're goddamn right it was. Especially when you see the footage.
So he had his lights and everything on, and she
Yes.
just refused to pull over and just went home?
Yes. Lights, siren, everything. She took him on a slow-speed chase, essentially. And then eventually when she pulled over, she refused to hand over the ID and everything.
Well, that has nothing to do with stress.
She acted like he wasn't even there.
Jeez Louise, she needs to lose her job.
And he was very polite. This officer was so nice. And he said, "Well, ma'am, I need to get your information here. Do you realize that this is a stop, that I'm conducting a stop for you going over the limit? Do you realize how fast you were going?" She goes, "Oh, I know how fast I was going. I'm the DA."
So she's elected. She's an elected official.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Huh.
She went on and continued, "While I previously apologized to him, I will say it again. I'm sorry. Police already have a tough job. And that day, I made this officer's job harder." She didn't make it harder. She made it impossible. The video is outrageous. It's one of the most outrageous stops you'll see ever. The upstate prosecutor had refused to stop when the cop tries to pull her over last Monday after allegedly clocking her doing 55 and a 35.
Oh.
Yeah. Instead, she drove home and called Webster Police Chief Dennis Kohlmeyer to
so now she's thinking she's above him.
Yes.
Oh, calling his boss.
She called the boss to complain about the a-hole officer pursuing her, according to the body cam footage. Despite the DA's tantrum, she was still slapped with a traffic ticket and pleaded guilty to the violation last Thursday. At one point, and let me show you this is her in her garage, Melly. On the phone with the police chief.
Okay.
And at one point, she tells the officer, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm the DA. I'll be prosecuting myself." What an asshole, huh?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. After the footage of Dorley's encounter with the cop started going viral, Governor Kathy Hochul on Sunday referred the DA to a state commission tasked with investigating prosecutors' conduct amid widespread calls for her to resign. "What I did was wrong, no excuses. I take full responsibility for my actions," Dorley said on Monday. "I fell short of the values I've held for my entire 33-year career. I didn't treat this officer with respect that he deserves. All officers deserve respect." Well, no shit. I got to show you a few other pictures here. This is her talking to the officer. If you did that kind of...
look at that stand where her hand is on her hip.
Yep, her hand is on her hip. Her other hand is on her vehicle. This is in her garage.
You know what? She's probably pulled this shit before. Oh, excuse my language.
No, go ahead.
She's probably pulled it before, but she's never been caught.
Right. And this is footage from the officer's body cam. If you're this officer and you've gone so far as to chase her to her home in her garage, are you not beating the holy crap out of her? I mean, yeah, you may lose your job, but I'd beat the shit out of her.
Yeah. That stance. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if she takes that attitude with me.
Where was her husband during all of this? Did he come out?
No. Here. Okay, so
he's probably got the curtain pulled back, just peeking.
Now, here's the other part of this, Mal. So she's in the garage. At one point, she goes in the house as she's on the phone with the police chief. The officer calls for backup. Here's the backup, and the backup agreed with the officer who issues the ticket. There are 2 officers on the scene.
Yeah.
And look at that look.
Yeah.
She's giving them both a condescending look like they're both crazy. But she's gone 20 miles an hour in a 35, which I believe the 35 did go through a school zone, if I remember right.
Okay.
And she's looking at him, and she's at the door in her garage is an attached garage. She's at the door of her home basically saying, I'm not putting up with this. I'm going inside.
Right.
And she said, I'm going to be prosecuting myself, so don't worry about it.
I hope she's taught a lesson.
Yeah.
I hope she has to resign.
In addition to pleading guilty and paying the fine, Dorley said she was referring the case to a different district attorney's office for a full review. Well, she should. She shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah, she shouldn't be reviewing herself. If one of my assistant district attorneys had acted this way, I would have disciplined them. So I'm disciplining myself, she says. Oh, well, I would think so. You got caught. I will take ethics training to remind myself that professionalism matters, she said. I've been humbled by my own stupidity, and I'm fully to blame. I will make this right. She's got to say something. She's about to lose her job.
Right.
Yeah. I believe in accepting responsibility for my actions and had no intention of using my position to receive a benefit. Bullshit. She called the chief.
Yeah. This is all PR stuff. She's trying to.
She says nobody, including your district attorney, is above the rule of law, even traffic laws. Well, then you would have stopped and took the ticket.
Right.
You wouldn't have driven to your home.
Right. Or if you really were concerned about your husband and you were an idiot and didn't pull over because you thought there really was an emergency, once you got into your garage, tell the cop, hey, I think my husband has an emergency and you can come with me.
Yes.
Let me check on my husband, then give me a ticket because I deserve it.
Yes. Or you know what? There's an emergency happening at home, officer. Can you please escort me?
Right.
Yeah. And can you please get a hold of a paramedic?
Right. Because you didn't see her going in there to check on him after she's yelling at the cop.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was such a blatant disregard for the law. Yeah. And you are the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way now she can keep her job.
Right.
She's who takes her seriously as a district attorney?
Right. I just think this isn't the first time it's the first time she's been caught. That
is just evidence that you have a corrupt district attorney in that area. I mean, if she'd do that for a traffic ticket, what else will she do?
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. So I have to ask you, Mally, this is this may seem funny, but funny, haha, funny, but funny in a weird way as well. This is the year that we have the double cicada invasion.
Uh-huh.
Have you had this happen in your area of the woods?
No.
No? People are noticing, especially in the South, that cicadas are so noisy that it's now caused a disturbance of the peace.
Okay.
And it's happening now in South Carolina. It's gotten so bad in one county that residents are calling the police.
Jesus. See, I find their noise comforting because it reminds me of growing up in the South.
Yeah.
So to me, hearing that noise, it's very relaxing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I actually, there's an author I'm having on in 2 weeks that has a book having, I know the title is something having to do with cicadas.
What's a singer's name? John, is it John Cicada?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's spelled a different way. Yeah, John Cicada, yeah, from...
I fall in love.
Wow,
Isn't that it?
Yes.
Like 90s?
Yes, it is. Holy cow, I didn't think anybody remembered John Cicada. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think it was a one-hit wonder, wasn't it?
Yes, but spelled a different way. His was S-E-C-A-D-A, and cicada is C-I-C-A-D-A-S. But, yeah, but good memory. I wasn't even thinking of that cicada. Wow.
I'm the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes,
Bring
you
me
are.
to a cocktail party. Useless information 101.
Although that John cicada is probably more annoying than the ones out in the woods. I'm just saying. So, yeah. But these emerging cicadas, unlike John cicada, are so loud that one South Carolina county that residents have residents calling the sheriff's office and asking why they can hear sirens or a loud roar.
A loud roar.
Is that the baseball stadium?
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
Hey! It's just a bunch of cicadas putting up their little...
Yeah.
I don't know about that. The Newberry County Sheriff's Office sent out a message on Facebook on Tuesday letting people know that the whining sound is just the male cicadas singing to attract mates.
Yeah, because males whine.
They do. You know, male chipmunks cheap. It's true. I have one in the garage right now that's just chirping away. Yeah. Poor guy. I almost want to go get him a little chipmunk whore.
Did you say chipmunk whore?
Yeah. Name my new band, Chipmunk Whore. I don't know where you find one, but I got to go out on the street with a fistful of bucks and some nuts.
Yeah.
Just saying.
They do love those nuts.
Where was that? Oh, yeah. So the whining sound is just the male cicadas, but that's most males in general. There you go. Singing to attract mates after more than a decade of being dormant. So it's this whole 10 years of not getting any and they're whining. Yeah, go figure. Some people have even flagged down deputies to ask what the noise is all about. According to Newberry County Sheriff Lee Foster, the noisiest cicadas were moving around the county of about 38,000 people, about 40 miles northwest of Columbia, prompting calls from different locations as Tuesday wore on. Trillions of red-eyed periodical cicadas are emerging from underground in the eastern U.S. this month. The broods emerging are on 13 or 17-year cycles. Imagine that. 13 or 17-year cycles, but they're coming together at the same time. Their collective songs can be as loud as jet engines, and scientists who study them often wear earmuffs to protect their hearing. So, yeah, they're a little loud. So people in South Carolina having a bit of a problem with them. This next story, Mally, sent to us by our buddy Tony.
Okay.
A little alarming. Someone fishing with a magnet dredged up new evidence in a Georgia couple's killing.
Ew.
Who fishes with a magnet?
You know what? They do that here.
Really?
At the Detroit River. Yeah, they found like guns and a bunch of stuff. Old bicycles, you name it. But yeah.
Fishing with a magnet, huh?
Here at Detroit. Yeah.
Really? Okay. We go to McRae, Helena, Georgia, where someone using a magnet to fish for metal objects in a Georgia creek pulled up a rifle as well as some lost belongings of a couple found slain in the same area more than 9 years ago. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says driver's licenses, credit cards, and other items dragged from Horse Creek in rural Telfair County are new evidence in a murder case that's still awaiting trial. A citizen who was magnet fishing in the creek on April 14th discovered a .22 caliber rifle, the GBI said in a news release Monday. The unnamed person returned to the same spot 2 days later and made another find, a bag containing a cell phone, a pair of driver's licenses, and credit cards. The agency says the licenses and credit cards belong to Bud and June Runyon. The couple was robbed and fatally shot before their bodies were discovered off a county road in January of 2015. Authorities say the couple from Marietta, north of Atlanta, made the 3-hour drive to Telfair County to meet someone offering to sell Bud Runyon a 1966 Mustang. A few days later, investigators arrested Ronnie Adrian J. Towns on charges of armed robbery and murder. They said Towns lured the couple to Telfair County by replying to an online ad that the 69-year-old Bud Runyon had posted seeking a classic car, though Tones didn't own such a vehicle. Georgia courts threw out Towns' first indictment over problems with how the grand jury was selected, a prolonged legal battle that concluded in 2019. Towns was indicted for a second time in the killings in 2020, and the case was delayed again by the COVID-19 pandemic. He has pleaded not guilty. Court proceedings have also likely been slowed by prosecutors' decision to seek the death penalty, which requires extra pretrial legal steps. Towns' defense attorney, Franklin Hogue, did not immediately return phone calls and email messages seeking comment on Tuesday. Interesting story there. So, fishing with a magnet. Who knew?
I always thought it'd be cool to do it like on a battlefield.
Yeah.
You know, like a creek running through a battlefield or something.
Yeah, that would be interesting. The stuff you'd find there. Well, especially when you find old ammunition or something like that. Yeah, most definitely. All right, this one's more than interesting. You ever flown Japan Airlines?
No, I have not.
I hesitate to fly it now after this story. A Japan Airlines flight was canceled after the pilot got drunk at a Dallas hotel bar and police were called. According to Japanese media, I believe it is the Mainichi, cited a statement from Japan Airlines, reported that the captain dined in Dallas last week with other crew members. According to the outlet, the airline said he then continued to drink throughout the evening in the hotel lounge where the crew were staying and later in his hotel room. That's a lot of fortitude there, Mal.
Yeah.
Yeah. At around 2 a.m. on Tuesday, a hotel employee asked the group to be quiet, but the pilot's disorderly conduct prompted a call to police at that point. According to statements provided by the airline, police questioned the man and warned him not to cause any further problems. The newspaper said the airline's decision to cancel the flight stemmed from the need to assess the captain's physical and mental well-being. Japan Airlines did not immediately respond to Business Insider's request for comment. Japan Airlines told the Mainichi, which I believe is the actual press outlet, that it could not find a replacement pilot in time for the Wednesday morning departure.
Well, at least they were playing it safe.
Well, yeah, and that's what's important. There is more to the story. It says data from the flight tracking website FlightAware shows that the flight due to depart at 11:05 a.m. local time on Wednesday was canceled. Japan Airlines helped to transfer the 157 passengers who were supposed to be on board onto alternate flights. Although a relatively rare occurrence, there have been several recent incidents of pilots reporting for duty under the influence, which is not good.
No,
Why is that?
But at least they helped, like, rearrange people. You know what I mean? Helps reschedule them on other flights. Because usually it's like, sorry, canceled.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
There's been 3 in the last year alone incidents of pilots that have reported drunk to the job. Is it because there's autopilot?
Oh.
Delta Airlines had a captain who admitted to turning up for a flight while over the legal alcohol limit. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison.
Do you think it's that? And then also don't they have like an assistant or a co-pilot?
Yep, they have a co-pilot.
So maybe they're thinking, well, worst case scenario, my co-pilot can take over.
Probably, yeah.
Or stress.
Yeah, it is a high stress job. And there's a lot of time away from home.
Family, yeah.
In 2023, a United Airlines pilot showed up to work under the influence and was handed a 6-month suspended prison sentence by a French court. Yikes. Le Parisien reported that he had a blood alcohol level of 0.132, which is more than 6 times the legal limit for pilots in Europe. Yikes. I think it probably is, Mally. It's the long hours. It's being away from home. It's being away from family. And the fact that we have technology now that can cover for you, and you do have a co-pilot. I think that's a lot of it. It's just easier to maybe cover it up a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still scary.
Yeah, very scary indeed. We talked about fishing with a magnet before. Here's a fishing trip that turned deadly when a man pulled a gun on his buddy and shot him.
Ooh.
Again, we're going to Florida.
And again,
we're going to Florida. I don't know that you need a gun when you go fishing.
No.
No.
Unless you're going fishing in the hood.
Even then, you're going fishing. An argument that erupted among fishermen turned deadly in the Florida Panhandle when one man pulled a gun and shot a fellow angler, according to investigators. Identities of the suspect and victim have not been released, probably out of sheer embarrassment, is my guess. It happened just after 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, April 27th, in a Diamond Head Fish Camp in Vernon, about a 100-mile drive northwest of Tallahassee. A woman called 911 and reported her husband was involved in an altercation, that's in quotes, with another man, according to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Investigators were informed that all three men had been on the lake fishing and consuming alcohol most of the day. That's the first ingredient to a good shooting on the lake, Mel.
Mm-hmm. Who was sleeping with whose wife?
That's right.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's the second ingredient.
Oh, really?
No, I don't know. I'm just saying. Once back at the dock, one party became aggressive and threatened to kill one of the other individuals. The altercation became physical between two parties, and a firearm was produced, leading to one individual being shot and killed.
Ooh,
it got serious. A sheriff's office dive team searched the water and recovered the body, according to officials. Investigators have not said what started the argument. The investigation is still ongoing. At this time, no charges have been filed. Wait a minute. Somebody died and there was no charges filed?
Sounds like, I was going to say something fishy, but I was trying not to be. But I mean, like, someone has connections.
Yeah. Self-defense? But
I don't know.
That's a curious one. If we get more details, we'll let you know. But that's odd. That you don't file charges on somebody shooting somebody.
Right.
And killing them.
When people are brought in for less.
Yeah. Bizarre. Well, we're going to go to New Mexico for this next one. We've got a few driving stories to report today.
Okay.
Lots of odd driving stories. We're going to Bernalillo County, New Mexico, where a video is making its way around social media, and it shows the moment when an Albuquerque driver tries to race someone on Paseo del Norte. That driver quickly realized who he was racing and knew he wasn't going to win.
Is it like Dale Earnhardt? Wait, he's dead.
Yeah, no, you can't race the dead, Mally.
Junior. I was like, wait a second, that guy's dead. His son. His son's still alive, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good guess. Now, you're not going to beat Junior, that's for sure. That's one guy you're not going to beat. But can you think of who else you would try to race that you're not going to beat?
A cop.
Exactly. I believe it's Bernalillo, something like that. County Sheriff's Office Deputy Connor Otero said, "Hey, buddy, are you trying to race me?" As this guy tried to fly by. Otero pulled over the driver on Friday night after the car sped away from the deputy, apparently trying to get him to race. You can hear the driver from Deputy Otero's lapel footage explain himself, saying the marked patrol unit was in his blind spot. The driver said, "Sorry." The deputy said, "You're only sorry because you raced the wrong dude. I mean, I'm winning that race 10 times out of 10, buddy." That's what the cop says to the guy. The driver says, "I think you're winning that race every single time." At least the driver was smart about it. He was one of dozens to be pulled over during Bernalillo County's street racing operation. I'll get that right. That night, the county says a total of 76 vehicles were stopped and 36 tickets were issued for speeding or racing on highways. It's a popular stretch, I guess. It does happen. People make some bad choices, said Deputy Otero. Fortunately, this driver made a good choice by pulling over and being able to talk with the deputy and receive citations instead of trying to take off and get some more charges tacked on top of what he already had done. Another 83 tickets were issued for other offenses. One driver was arrested and their vehicle was towed. There's a lot of places that these individuals can go out and show off their cars and the speeds that they can go, but they need to do it in a safe location, Deputy Otero went on to say.
Yeah, go to a Sonic parking lot. You'll be fine.
The Sonic parking lot?
Yeah, they do that here. Yeah.
Really?
And then and then there's like a day downriver something where everyone parades in their cars. So like the following day you'll go out, like I go out to go grocery shopping and there's black marks everywhere. Oh, yeah, burnout marks. Yeah. But, everyone hangs out at Sonic with their cars. It's quite hilarious.
You want to hear something kind of boss?
Sure.
I can leave burnout marks in my minivan.
Ooh, yeah. Fancy.
Pretty cool, huh? My little black minivan. I'm pretty impressive, actually, when I drive up to St. Cloud. I can, off the stoplight, I can go, my little minivan. Yeah.
I can do that with my sneakers on our wood floor.
Really? See, I'm impressed.
Like a basketball court.
I'm impressed by that. See? It's the little things in life, Mal.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See? I'm impressed by that. I'll pretend you're Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves.
There we go.
There you go. Our next story has to do with a homicide rap for a Tesla driver on autopilot. Another driving story. This man was using his cell phone when his Model S ran over a motorcyclist.
Ooh.
Yikes. Yeah, you probably should be careful when you're on autopilot in a Tesla. Teslas are no good to find out. They may be expensive, but they're trouble.
Mm-hmm.
A Tesla owner has been charged with vehicular homicide after his car traveling in autopilot mode slammed into a motorcyclist when he got distracted looking at his cell phone. There's a lot of big no-nos there.
Yep.
Yeah. We're going to Washington, where police said that 56-year-old Carl Hunter was driving his 2022 Model S late Friday afternoon when the vehicle rear-ended a motorcycle on State Route 522 near, this is Snohomish, I believe, a city 35 miles north of Seattle. The collision killed Jeffrey Neeson, who's a 28-year-old construction worker who was on his way home. When cops arrived at the crash scene, the Tesla sedan was atop the motorcycle with a male rider laying next to the Tesla driver's rear side. Mm-hmm. A GoPro camera that had been attached to Neeson's helmet was seized by police. During questioning, Hunter said he was driving home and looked down at his cell phone while the vehicle was rolling forward on autopilot. Adding that he was distracted by his phone, Hunter said that the next thing he knew, there was a bang and the vehicle lurched forward as it accelerated and collided with the motorcycle in front of him. The Tesla became lodged on top of the motorcycle and was unable to be removed in time, according to a Washington State Patrol trooper. While Hunter admitted to having a drink at lunch, police concluded that there was not enough evidence to support a DUI vehicular homicide charge. However, since Hunter reportedly copped to inattentive driving while moving forward, putting trust in the machine to drive for him, he was arrested for vehicular homicide DSO, disregard for the safety of others. Hunter was freed from custody after posting a $100,000 bond. Hunter lives in a $1.6 million Snohomish home that he purchased with his wife in 2002.
Did you see that that they're having problems? Okay, so those Ubers or whatever you can take that don't have a driver.
Yeah, the autonomous ones.
Right, where they're running into problems because let's say the cop, like a cop is directing traffic, so it's not your normal course, that the car can't follow the directions. So people are in the back seat screwed because the car won't do what the cop's telling them to do.
Yeah, I've read quite a bit about the autonomous Uber program and that it's not very successful. Yeah, there's lots of issues with it. Although they're trying to launch it very quickly. They're trying to get it on the streets and going. But there's lots of things it can't do.
Right.
Yeah, like school crossings. It doesn't respond well to school crossings. There's a lot of live things it doesn't respond to. People in crosswalks, it doesn't respond well to, which is not good.
Yikes. No, not at all. We already have a hard time here in Detroit with people not going in crosswalks, let alone if they are in a crosswalk.
Right.
We're just kind of
jaywalkers. It doesn't respond to jaywalkers either.
Oh my gosh, we got a ton of those here. No one follows the rules.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bad thing. There's it's bad stuff, Mel. Bad stuff. One more road story for us here before we get to I believe we're almost on the not safe for work part of our show here before we wrap up today. A 46-year-old Florida man, yes, we're going back to Florida, is arrested for road rage al dente.
Okay.
That's right.
So it's not quite all the way road rage?
Oh, no. We're combining pasta with our road rage here.
Oh, okay.
That's right. The victim in the drive-by attack, cops say, was hit in the arms, legs, and torso by a road-raging Florida motorist. But the male escaped without injury because he was only struck by pasta with sauce.
I wonder if it's mom's spaghetti.
Oh, see, I see where you're going. I see where you're going. Were you out at the NFL draft this past weekend?
No, I wasn't. We had kids stuff going on all weekend.
So you missed.
But I enjoyed watching it from afar.
That was probably the best place to watch it from, especially with all those people down there. Yeah, yeah. But have you been to Mom's Spaghetti by chance?
I have.
Have you?
Like 11:30 at night in the alleyway.
Yeah.
Mom's Spaghetti.
Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's not like award winning, but it's good for 11:30 at night, drunk, coming home from a concert.
I don't think it was set up to be award winning, though, was it?
No.
It was just supposed to be fast and easy, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it was fun, and there was quite a line and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it was good. It was fun. It's very kitschy. I like it.
Yeah,
I was hoping he'd be passing me the food because once in a while he'll make an appearance.
Really?
Yep.
Oh wow.
But that night, nope.
I
know. Apparently he doesn't like Depeche Mode. So, because that's where all the concert goers were coming from.
Well, I suppose. But you never know. Every once in a while. Maybe he's more of an Erasure fan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Good choice.
See? Just saying, Mel. Back to our story. Cops allege that 46-year-old Nolan Goines was involved in a road rage incident over glaring headlights Thursday night while driving near his St. Petersburg residence. The defendant threw food or pasta with sauce. Thank you for not throwing the meat with it because that's a more expensive dish.
Need that protein.
That's right, yes. From the passenger seat of his vehicle, striking the victim through his open window as he operated his vehicle. That's a good waste of pasta with sauce, though. Yeah. Those are good carbs going out the window. Goines was found with the same food stains on his right sleeve as the male target of the pasta pelting. I love that phrase, pasta pelting. It's so nice. Goines was charged with battery, a misdemeanor, and booked into the county jail. Goines, who was freed on how much bond now?
Oh, you always do this to me.
I know, but
$1,500.
You're so close. Try one more time.
$1,200.
$1,000. It's $1,000 to be pelted with pasta. Is a painting contractor, so maybe this was homework.
Could be. Or a fetish. People have food fetishes.
That's true. He's a painting contractor whose rap sheet involves convictions for selling marijuana, obstruction, and battery twice, as well as a multitude of traffic infractions. Investigators did not identify the kind of pasta or sauce used in the alleged attack. It is also unclear if Goines was transporting his dinner or leftovers home, or whether he regularly travels so armed. Maybe he makes it a habit, Mally, instead of carrying a gun in his car, to come armed with Olive Garden.
I was just thinking, what if he was coming home from Olive Garden? Maybe he could get sponsored.
Yeah, like, he had like a little sticker, a little magnet on the side of his car. And when people piss him off in traffic, he just grabs a handful and goes, "When you hear your family," and then he hits them with the And is it the vodka sauce, or is it is it a nice marinara? What do you choose when you throw pasta?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, tomato sauce will probably stain more so than an Alfredo.
Right.
Or maybe even a vodka.
And do you choose a shorter noodle? Do you go with the spaghetti noodle? Do you go with the Alfredo noodle? A nice angel hair? Angel hair is a little too light. You got to go with a heavier noodle.
Something thicker.
Yeah. Do you go with the, I forget what intern Yoko's dad calls it. He calls it the Tubi noodle.
Rigatoni?
Yeah, rigatoni. Yeah. You go with one of those.
Tubi noodle.
The Tubi noodle. That's all I can call it now is the Tubi noodle. I don't know it by any other thing. All right, it's time now for the not safe for work portion of our program. Of course, now you got to put the kids away, put the boss away, put them all away. Turn on your listening device. We'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Of course, we're going to Florida because that's where all the not safe for work stuff happens, evidently. Doesn't happen in any other state, Valley. This man should think twice when trying to cross-dress and commit a crime.
It's not the guy shoving stuff up his skirt again, is it?
No.
Okay. I'm like, he's back?
No, not that guy. No, it's just, some guys look good cross-dressing, other guys don't.
Well, yeah.
This guy, not so much. I don't think
he doesn't have a feminine,
he has very sharp, angular features. Yeah,
he looks like he's part of the, what do you call him? Drag queen group.
He looks very housewife-ish, doesn't he?
Well, it's the sweater.
Yeah, I think
it's the cardigan that's making him housewife-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty harsh.
It is harsh, yeah. And his legs are horrible. I'm just saying he's got...
Well, I mean, he has thin legs. Who wouldn't want a thin leg? But...
Well, it's very...
They're like chicken legs. They're like too skinny.
It's very bird-like, yeah.
Yeah. Is he wearing tights?
No. He's just letting the hairy leg hang out. Yeah. Yeah. It's horrible. At least put some effort into it. If you're going to do this. So a Florida man was arrested while dressed as a woman in an attempt to disguise himself in a wig and a dress, according to the sheriff. In addition to his mugshot, the Glades County Sheriff's Office also released a photo of the man as he was arrested and showing his failed attempt to go incognito. This is what he looks like when he's not trying to be a fashion.
Okay, so he's not just a cross-dresser. He was trying to disguise himself.
Yeah, he did a horrible job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're going to go all the way,
right.
Commit to the bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he really did a horrible job.
Yeah, he looks better as a man.
Yeah. The photo is what Joshua Kalatka looked like when he posed for his mugshot in Lakeport, Florida, the one I just showed Mally. But it sure wasn't how he appeared when he was apprehended by police. In a release from the Glades County Sheriff's Office, authorities claim Kalatka tried his best to evade deputies by going incognito, wearing a wig and a dress to avoid arrest. Well, it didn't work. The arrest went down on Wednesday as the sheriff's office was investigating a recovered stolen boat found near the Old Calusa Lodge area in Lakeport. Deputies identified 33-year-old Kalatka. Now, see, here's what I have a problem with, Mally.
Mm-hmm.
The man's 33 years old. It's not like he isn't too old to do a little upkeep.
Well, hello, there's YouTube videos. His makeup is atrocious. No one wears those the eyelash things that he's wearing. They look like caterpillars.
They do, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's free advice on how to put makeup on. He's wearing like frosted silver eye stuff and like bright blue 1960s eyeshadow.
He looks horrible.
Yeah.
There's tutorials out there. I mean, come on, Kalatka.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Highlighter.
Yeah.
Blush.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad looking.
Yeah. Deputies identified Kalatka as a suspect and said they saw him exiting a residence dressed as a woman in an attempt to disguise himself. A horrible disguise. The deputies were able to apprehend Joshua, and he was arrested for 2 Okeechobee County warrants, along with the theft of a John Deere Gator and the stolen boat. A photo released by the Sheriff's Department shows the moment Kalatka was arrested while wearing a short blonde wig, sunglasses, feather-patterned dress, and a white top. It was a horrible cardigan sweater.
Yeah.
Authorities also noted that numerous other items that were possibly stolen from the same area were also recovered at the scene. The Sheriff's Department is working with the Seminole Police Department to identify some of the stolen items from other theft cases in the area. They're also working with the Fashion Police to help Josh out as well. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. Per records, Kalatka is still being held at the Glades County Jail on the 2 warrants without bond. They're also calling in RuPaul to work on his rouge. So,
you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of, remember that music video of Jane's Addiction?
Yeah.
Where it's a guy dressed up as a woman and he puts food in like his pantyhose?
He looks like Perry Farrell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Look, this is Perry Farrell in a wig and a dress. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. Yeah. Good call, Mally.
Yeah, going grocery shopping with the pantyhose.
That's right. He is Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction. That's an excellent call. I knew he looked like somebody I'd seen before, but you nailed it. Yeah. Our last story may sound like a story I read last week, but it is not the same story.
Oh, so we have 2 idiots?
We have 2 idiots.
One from last week and one from this week.
That's right. I really don't think this is the same story from last week. It is a totally different story, but it sounds similar. My God. For our final story today, Mel, a customer finds a naked woman in a Jeep for sale.
Nice.
Yeah, right?
Bonus.
I know. I never get this when I go to the dealership.
I know.
It's always, do you want free detailing, car washes for a year?
Extra warranty, gap coverage.
I wish there was gap coverage here. But no, I got to give myself one of those. The suspect, 37, was in a car on the auto lot. A customer shopping for a used car discovered a naked woman pleasuring herself in the rear seat of a 2010 Jeep Wrangler parked outside a Florida auto dealership. Police were called to Bob Tyler Toyota in Pensacola after a customer complained to a sales associate about a naked woman in the back seat of one of the vehicles on the sales lot. When a dealership manager opened the Jeep's door, he spotted 37-year-old Alexis King naked with her legs spread wide open. Why would you complain?
I know. I was just thinking, I'm like, I bet you it was a woman that complained, because a guy would probably let the lady finish and then be like, hey.
Hey.
I would like to check this Jeep out.
Can I get that detailed?
I need to take this for a drive.
That's right. Far, far away. Is there enough gas?
Yeah.
A receptionist reported that the suspect was pulling at her vagina. I'm betting there was some rubbing and tugging, too. I'm just saying. A third employee who called 911 told police that a coworker called him to the front lot to get a vehicle that a homeless woman was inside pleasuring herself. How do you know she was homeless?
I was thinking she was probably doing something for like a porn site or, one of those OnlyFans rather than a homeless person.
You tell me, does she have an OnlyFans?
Yeah, she's looking a little homeless.
I don't think she has an OnlyFans, Mel. I'm just saying. After King exited the vehicle and walked away from the dealership, employees noticed damage to the car's interior, including a broken radio and oh God, I can't say this. I'm going to say it.
It was a bodily something.
There was a period stain on the back seat. A manager estimated that King caused about $1,300 damages to the Jeep. One witness told cops that the auto smelled so horrible that it went straight to detailing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I I don't know why I'm laughing. I feel bad for the lady, but ooh, Lordy.
Ooh, boy. King was charged with burglary, criminal mischief, indecent exposure, and providing police with a false name. She's being held in Escambia County Jail on $7,000 bond. According to the dealership website, the convertible Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Sport, which has logged nearly 84,000 miles, is available for $23,116. I believe you can get it for a discount right now.
Yeah.
The listing makes no mention of any recent stains visited upon the car's gray cloth seats, but I bet you there's probably a patch over it. Yeah.
Because don't you have to acknowledge if there's bodily fluids in a car?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. That's how we end Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today.
Yeah. Well, at least the lady has a hot, what do you call it? Three hots in a cot?
Yes. Now she's being properly taken care of by the authorities. Yeah.
And hopefully properly taken care of down there as well.
Oh, boy. Give you one of those. So, for the latest in Mally Fox, we check out paranormalgirl.com, correct?
Yep.
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 And I saw you on the TV last weekend.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, I went to Max, and there you were.
I have a hard time watching myself. I can't watch those shows.
Why?
It's something weird. I can't do it.
Strange.
I can't. Yeah, I can't watch myself.
You're gonna have to learn how.
I know it's too weird for me. Even when I'm by myself, I can't do it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like my worst critic. I'll be like, "Oh, that hair is out of place. Oh, why did I say that? Well, I say that all the time. Why did I say that?" But you know what I mean? Just kind of neat.
Paranormal Night Shift was on the other. What was it, last week before? And I went, "Who's that fat guy?" But no. And I went, it's me. But yeah, no, I can sit through it. Sure.
Yeah, I can't.
But Strange Evidence is on Max. It's on demand on Max. You can also see it on the Science Channel. So yeah, you can see our Mally Fox there. Otherwise, paranormalgirl.com. Check out everything that's available there. There's some great recipes there. There's some great merchandise there. Be sure to check it out. Yep.
And Women on the Fringe, the book.
That's right. You almost spoiled my surprise for Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See? I was going to say, Mally's giving you the look ahead for this week, but coming up tomorrow, Supernatural News, Jessica Freeberg, and then Thursday we have Marie G. Jones, Nicole Strickland, and the third author on that book is Mally?
That would be, isn't it Denise? Yeah, Denise Agnew.
There you go. Those three ladies will be in, and we will be talking about the book, Women in the Paranormal. I forget what the rest of the title is.
It is, let's see. I don't even know it. I have to look.
I know it's horrible, but it's their new book, Women in the Paranormal.
Yeah, Women in the Fringe, groundbreaking Women in the Paranormal.
There you go. Women on the Fringe. There you go. That's
on the Fringe, I guess. That dot for the I is an O.
There you go. Women on the Fringe is the name of the book, and Mally is in it. So
yes.
Yeah. So,
page 106, people.
See, look at that. You know what page you are.
Wait, I think.
Well, you better.
I just remember I had a 1 and a 6 in it, and I was like, well, that's good luck.
Well, you better look to make sure.
You know, well, now I need my glasses, so I can't see. Yeah, 106.
I was going to say, I have the book, too. I should probably know as well. But, yeah, so Mally's in that book as well. So there's your homework assignment, people. Go get Women on the Fringe before Thursday. But we'll have all three ladies in, and we'll be talking about Women on the Fringe on Thursday. Big week here.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, remember we were also talking about not only am I in one book.
You're in 2 books. You're in today's book, too. You're in Paranormal Justice.
Uh-huh.
Look at you.
I know, I'm rocking.
And you're on television.
I know. And I'm on Darkness Radio.
And you're on Darkness Radio.
I know.
Jeez. It's like you're a multimedia star.
Oh my God. Would you like my autograph?
I would. I can say I knew you win. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I should let you sign off the show. I'm gonna sit back.
Nope.
I'm gonna drink like an airline pilot while you take us out. That's what I'm gonna do.
No, you can take us out.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, that'll do it for today's show. Again, tomorrow, Supernatural News with Jessica Freeberg, and then Thursday again, Marie D. Jones, Nicole Strickland, and Denise Agnew will be in for Women on the Fringe, and we'll be celebrating women in the paranormal.
Yes.
On Thursday. So there you go. Every week we're celebrating women in the paranormal here on Darkness Radio.
Love it.
There you go. For Mally Fox, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for listening to. Oh, by the way, before we leave, go get Brad Blair's book.
Yes.
Yeah, Paranormal Justice. It's in the description of this program.
Get it.
So yeah, go get that book. Okay, now we can wrap it up. For Mally Fox, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us today for True Crime Tuesday.